Hey everybody, it's the Last Robo Kai here, and it's time for some more Dawn of War Soulstorm. And as I've said before, we're not doing a full campaign with anybody, so we've shown off the sisters. We've done a Stronghold with the sisters to get a little bit of time to talk about their general lore. So now we're going to do the same with the Dark Eldar, who were sort of similar to the Necrons and the Tau in that there'd been little snippets here and there, but, as far as anyone knew, they weren't really anything substantial, and then Games Workshop went, let's turn them into an actual faction, and they've been a very solid part of the setting ever since. It is also worth noting, actually, and this is something very interesting to note, that Soulstorm's rendition of the Dark Eldar is based on the original codex of it. Now, one of the funny points about this is that after the codex came out, I can't remember how much longer it was afterwards, but they then released a second codex, which, much like the Necron codex, changed up a few things. Most importantly, it changed up the roles of a few units and things like that, and their backstory and their lore. So, if anything, if you see things that happen in this particular thing, and you go, "Well, that doesn't look right. That looks wrong," that's why. And I will probably not be going through and picking through and telling you what all these different differences are, except for like one very obvious one, simply because I'm not that knowledgeable on the Dark Eldar. I'm not even that knowledgeable on them in Soulstorm. I've pulled up a Russian Wikipedia guide, so at the very least I know what most of the units do, and are also called, because I constantly forget that too. So joining me on this journey into extreme violence, torture, and spiky bits is Cool Guy.
Yo, and unfortunately, we will not be applying it to the elves. That's just the aesthetic the elves have. But I'll go ahead and just cop to it as well. I like in the short time I played Soulstorm. I think I played the Dark Eldar for all of 20 minutes because their unique mechanic pissed me off. So I'm probably not gonna be saying too much on them mechanically either. We're just gonna stick to lore chat.
Yeah, and what I'll talk about some of the units as we swing into them. So let's get stuck straight in. So, the leader of the Dark Eldar of the Blackheart Cabal. It is interesting to note in particular that the Blackheart Cabal is actually the most powerful cabal of the Dark Eldar, and it may have to come to the Stronghold's mission when we fight against Chaos' Stronghold, where I actually explain what the hell a cabal is even. But needless to say, we're playing as Taril or Taril. We're gonna skip all of that now. The Archon is the name of a particular leader position in a cabal, but he's not the supreme leader of the faction. The leader of the Black Heart is Asdrabale Vect. He is the supreme leader of Komara. And the other interesting thing to note about the Dark Eldar commander is similar to the Imperial Guard commander. You get access to dudes, so it is a harder to wipe out squad simply because even if the Archon gets shot in the face. So long as his Incubi guards, since that's their name, Incubi, as long as they exist, you can just recruit him back in, same way with the Imperial Guard General. So that's pretty cool. But that's not what makes the the Dark Eldar the Dark Eldar. I'll repeat from previous videos, the major thing about the Blackheart Cabal is that they can go pretty much anywhere to any gate they want from any particular gate, and they have a one-way gate. In essence, like an unapproachable gate from their moon, which means that you can pretty much choose to go wherever you want to get into whatever fight you want, straight away from the get-go, which is kind of fun, but also kind of troubling if you're the player, because the Dark Eldar will tend to beeline towards you to cause you problems.
Particularly with the supply lines that are new to this game, like. I remember definitely grinding my teeth multiple times because I was trying to push forward and get a faction knocked out, and the Dark Eldar would come in and just sever my supply lines, and I just wanted to murder everything. Everything in front of me just needed to die.
Hilariously on brand for the Dark Eldar, though, if you think about it.
Incredibly on brand. Like so the big thing around the Dark Eldar, their big aesthetic is that they're basically spiky, edgy, torture happy space pirates. Like the basic shot is that the Eldar dealt with the fall of the Eldar and the birth of Slaanesh differently, right? Right?
Yes.
Like the Craftword Eldari, who are the Eldar that we've been working with for the vast majority of these games, put their souls into the Soul Stones to basically keep Slaanesh from sealing their souls and devouring them. The Dark Eldar instead got a technique to torture the crap out of slaves that teased their soul out in such a way that Slaanesh wouldn't consume them. So more or less, as long as they kept doing horrible things to other sentient beings, they could keep going on forever.
Yeah,
and
it's kind of a weird, complicated thing because the essentially because they were like the primary problem makers that helped create Slaanesh, they are in part also in a way touched by Slaanesh. So not only is like this sort of like what you're talking about a method for them to escape being eaten by Slaanesh, because Slaanesh doesn't outright suck their souls away, Slaanesh nibbles on their souls.
Right.
But the suffering of others is what rejuvenates the Dark Eldar souls. See, I think this is actually something that has come about in a slight change from the first codex to the second codex. I think the first codex had them doing the soul offerings to try and subvert it, whereas the second one was like, actually, no, like the pain and suffering of others is what like rejuvenates their soul, and basically just gives Slaanesh more to chew on later. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I'm not super concerned about the distinction between the two, honestly.
Yeah, I should probably get into start talking about them in terms of mechanics. I'm mousing over the big major mechanic for the Dark Eldar, the soul ability mechanic. We'll call them the soul powers, and those 6 powers there at the that I was sort of mousing over. In essence, what happens when the Dark Eldar are on the field is enemies they kill will drop bits of soul. And our little buddies there, the slaves, the tortured slaves, it is worth noting, they can harvest those. There's also another unit can harvest them. I'll get to that in a little bit. And so by harvesting those, you get more and more of that power, and you can spend it. The powers you get access to grow as things are upgraded. And yeah, we're going to be dealing with the Alpha Legion for majority of this, and unfortunately they have really come in swinging on us on this one. But some of the more astute folks would also have noticed when we started, when the Tortured Slave starts building a building, it's like the best comparison is the Protoss from StarCraft. They put it down, and everyone starts everything starts sort of warping in, and you can just wander off and do whatever the hell you want. Like,
right.
No worries. And so the first combat unit we built is like, I will say actually, the Tortured Slaves doing that I think is essentially so that you can slap down the buildings and then get back to harvesting. See, we've got
That's
some
precisely why it works like that.
Yeah, so that like they're not spending time with your food on the floor, so you can actually use these abilities you've got, and you can upgrade one particular building that you have. In a certain way. There are these things that are essentially known as the slave chambers, and they can be updated in 2 different ways, and one of them basically makes them drop souls, so in your own base. So you can just have like a dedicated slave harvesting the entire time. And since those particular chambers also increase your weapon, your troop cap in general, then like, you're gonna have a few of those around anyway. And
go ahead.
I was just going to say, and the other function of the building is like a morale-based thing. So honestly, the soul harvesting thing that just sort of occasionally spits out a dead body is probably the better one.
Blurp. Yeah, like this is basically the reason why I got so ticked off at this. This is functionally a crappier and more heavy version of the Sisters' Faith abilities, right?
Yes.
And I vaguely remember this part might not be correct, but I vaguely remember that some more advanced units also require souls to make.
I don't.
So like they don't.
Or if they do, I didn't notice because I had so many souls.
Like I said, that part might not be correct. This is the first time when my memory has gotten really fuzzy. But like this is effectively a more irritating and micro heavy version of the sisters' casting abilities. But those casting abilities are really quite powerful. Like from the receiving perspective, a slam dunk fight can turn into a very chancy engagement through the deployment of a soul power, which really sucks because like so many other things in Dawn of War, everything is about what you get for what you spend.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's exactly like the tabletop in that way. It's totally fine to lose 50 points of troops if it means that you doom, kill, or otherwise disable 75 points of troops. Exactly the same thing matters here. So like it sucks to fight against, but it sucks to play as. It's just like stop.
Yeah, and so the abilities are, starting from the leftmost one, is Piercing Vision, which you can give as a single cast ability onto a single unit of your own units, and it gives them the ability to detect infiltrated units for 30 seconds. The second one is Screams of the Damned. When you use that on an enemy unit, their morale is halved for 15 seconds, and then at the end of that period, they take 40 morale damage, and then it lets the person get their full morale cap back. So a lot of things that Dark Eldar do damage enemy morale because they're very much a terror raiding force. So breaking the enemy and running them down is definitely the playstyle that they like to enjoy. Then as you get more upgrades from buildings and things like that, you get access to Rend Soul, which does direct damage and morale damage, and then tick damage over time as well, and also disables enemy abilities while you do it. Obviously, the costs of these abilities increase as we start going up the more powerful one. The picture of the armor that looks like it's melting, which is hilariously enough looks like Craftworld armor that's melting. That one's Corrosion, and it just basically lowers the armor of any unit that's hit with that that big AOE of raining acid, and they can take they take more damage. And
Corrosion in particular is the one that I'm...
thing.
Corrosion... Go ahead, finish your thought.
I was just going to say, apparently, the description for this I'm looking up says the damage increase is more effective when the attack, but, the attacking unit has a lower piercing against that target. So essentially, a guy with a bolt gun shooting at a tank is actually going to get more out of Corrosion than a las cannon.
I distinctly remember that. It's one of the only things I very clearly remember, because Corrosion is the primary one that I was talking about, where a good fight that you join up, and you're just all right, I'm gonna stomp these guys and move on. Corrosion comes out, and all of a sudden you are losing half of the force that you committed, and were expecting to redeploy elsewhere, and now it's stalled while it's reinforcing.
Right, and then we've got Rekindle Rage, which instantly recharges all abilities that were on cooldown for whoever you targeted it on, and the last one is Soulstorm. Oh, it's the title of the game. It's a big Eldritch Storm that you can, when it's cast, you can direct around the battlefield, similar to the Eldritch Storm in Dawn of War 2. That's it. That's it. That's your big fuck off superpower for that. Is you just drop a cloud on everyone and just move the cloud around on top of them, and the cloud very slowly shaves everyone down. It doesn't blast anyone anywhere like Eldritch Storm can. So yeah, that's it for the things, and by this point we've built quite a few units, so I should probably get into them. Those mostly naked dudes in well, not mostly naked, they're wearing pants, but those guys with their buff arms out and the stabby things on their arms and things like that, they're the Mandrakes, and they're the primary unit that I would say changed dramatically between the Dark like the first Dark Eldar Codex and the second Dark Eldar Codex. In the original incarnation, they kind of looked like this. They kind of looked like little weird shaved bondage dudes. And then the more modern incarnation of the Mandrake, they have long hair. Their skin is completely like obsidian black, and it's the idea is that they can melt through the shadows. Like the effects of like living in like the lower areas of Comarar has affected them so much that they've essentially become like beings almost like shadows who can like hop into your shadow and then come out of it and stab you in the back. So everyone's a little worried about ever like upsetting them. Whereas like the mandrakes as we see here aren't really that cool. And they still have the entire concept that they are really good at cloaking and really good at hiding and things like that. And so they start out as your scouting units, and they become melee infiltrators. And you know, honestly, they're not too bad. They get upgrades along the way to make them able to function. But you know, and they get like poison blades and things like that. And yeah, and buffs to their health and damage. And then we've got the warrior squad, the basic dudes. You can see them there with the mandrakes, with their weird splintered rifles, because it's like they're kind of like shuriken guns, but like not. I don't know. They don't really use Wraithbone, the Dark Eldar. We'll go into exactly what the fuck happened with the Dark Eldar, and why you will never see things like Psychers in their ranks, etc., etc. But the Dark Eldar warriors are basically just the average Dark Eldar, which is to say they're very physically quite powerful and agile, etc., etc. And generally speaking, they, like the Eldar generally are, not that capable of taking much in a fight. They do, however, come into their own when you get a particular vehicle that will show off soon enough, known as the Raider. The Raider changes up the warrior's function. It's pretty good. The fellas that you all saw flying around on the little discs, they're the Hellion squad, and this is sort of one of those things that sort of is about the Dark Eldar. You've actually got a lot of troops that have jump packs, so to speak. In this particular case, these guys are riding around on cool as fuck flying disc things, and they like to fly past people at head height and decapitate them and high-five each other because they think they're amazing. They're really quite quick. They've got, you know, pretty good range on their attacks, even as a melee unit, and they're a little bit tougher, so they are, I would say, probably one of the best builder harassing units in the game. They will kill like just about every single builder in seconds.
I definitely remember Hellions making me want to kill everyone and then myself.
And they will generally, and since they come out relatively early, they will also outfight a lot of like early units as well. But if the other faction has dedicated melee units, they don't fare so well. They're very much the pick off the weak who can't fight back kind of units. Again, that's a Dark Eldar thing.
That is very like, Dark Eldar.
so it suits them very well, and the Incubi, to explain on them as well, are a special sort of group within the Dark Eldar. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to sort of point out something you might notice with these listening posts we've got here. As the listening posts, we've got the usual upgrades for them. You know, you go up the upgrade tree, they get bigger, they get tougher. But unlike every other faction in the game, you can build an extra set of weapons on them. Like the Tau, they don't have turrets, but their listening posts are kind of ridiculous fire emplacements once you've like fully upgraded them. It's kind of cool. Oh boy! So we're building a Reaver jet bike and a Raider. So I'll get into that as well. The Reaver jet bike is essentially it is what it is. It is a very light, like skimming vehicle that can be upgraded to like deal with enemy armor, but it will shrink. It will absolutely melt under like any form of sustained fire. So like you definitely want to just like you definitely want to be careful about where you post them, because they look really great, but they don't fare so well in a fight.
It's basically the same thing as the Craft World Eldari frickin' equivalent.
Yeah, the Viper.
Yeah.
Although like it's not doing so well. Like that Chaos Lord would have just like bopped it to death. So the Raider is where the fun starts. So the Raider it's a oh, look, I love the way the skimmer moves though. I love the way it slides around. It's a transport vehicle with its own gun, which is pretty cool. You saw how fast it is. It's a really good transport vehicle in that regard. And I would normally say transport vehicles not so great. The transport vehicle that is the Raider has one facet to it that puts it above pretty much every single other one, and I'm about to demonstrate it. You can put a squad of warriors in it. They will all stand atop the vehicle, and they will all shoot out of it in pretty much any direction. And so what you get is you get a better armored warrior squad, because warrior squads do tend to wilt under fire. They tend to die a little too easily. But in a Raider, although the Raider is still fairly lightly armored, they suddenly become very much immune to small arms fire and are able to cause all sorts of trouble. The range on the Hellions is actually kind of good too. I quite like it. Like they can jump a really far distance to get in on enemies, which again suits the Dark Eldar very much. They hop in from a very long range to pick at your weak points. But yeah, so the Raider is actually like the Chimera does a similar sort of thing, but they're kind of like for the Imperial Guard, but it's a little awkward, and I never really felt like it was working properly. But it works exactly how it's supposed to work with the. Okay, so the squad getting its ass. I wanted to finish my sentence, but I just can't do it because I'm watching the Scourge squad get humiliated. Scourges are another jump pack unit for the Dark Eldar, and they are, I think, in current lore, like the messengers of the Dark Eldar society, because Komrar is full of really big, spiky towers and shit like that. Here we go. Check that shit out.
God, that's so cool.
It looks
I
great.
freaking hate playing the Dark Eldar in this game, but that is that is the coolest freaking thing.
Yeah, so they're all mounted up, and because this game doesn't really have open top vehicle rules, you don't have to worry about anyone in there getting shot. So yeah, the Scourge's major thing is that they are heavy weapon units, but with wings, so they can basically jump in, land somewhere, and cause problems. And that big old thing that's just come flying out is the Talos, and the Talos is kind of the highlight of the like, boy, the Dark Eldar were really like edgy kind of design, because there's a big thing in Dark Eldar society that involves the fact that death has become a mere suggestion. This fellow, the Homunculus, is one of those kinds of people that's largely responsible for it. Let's drive closer. I want to hit him with my TIE squad. There we go. That's better. So the idea is in Dark Eldar society, if you're rich enough, you pay a Homunculus to keep a little bit of your soul, because they could just, carve off a little bit of your soul and put it in stasis so Slash doesn't nibble on it too much. They can keep that bit of soul healthy enough by having a little bit of suffering occurring near it, so that it never doesn't diminish. And so long as they've got enough samples of your body, they can rebuild you, stick your little piece of soul inside of you, and then they can just sort of reinvigorate that soul, get that body going, and what Bob's your uncle? You're back. Like they've created a most bizarre form of like immortality, and the Talos is a construction of the Homunculi, and it's described as being like a torture device. It also goes around collecting people for the Homunculus to take for like materials or whatever. It's best to think of the Homunculus as being just like a cross between the Cenobites from the Hellraiser series and also the Reanimator. Very much. And the Talos is interesting in that it can also it can fight decent enough in melee damage. It's actually does more damage in melee according to this thing I'm reading through, just so I know what I'm talking about. It actually does more damage than a Krutox, and it has a lot of health and armor as well. It's like the tankiest thing in the Dark Eldar army, and it can also harvest souls after a battle. And because of its gimmick of being what it is, it's like it scoops people up and stuffs it inside of its main body chamber. It's kind of weird, but it actually gets more soul per harvest. Oh boy, and here are the witches, and here's the other thing is that it's like we talked about how the Dark Eldar, it's like suffering reinvigorates their souls, etc., etc. But they also have like high class and low class and slaves and everything like that. But if you were letting Slaanesh eat away at them, you'd basically have diminishing returns on like all the useful people who worked underneath you. Like sure, the nobles would be fine because they get all the best torture and everything like that. The homunculus would be fine because in return for all the body work they do, they get slaves from the raiding parties, etc., etc. But the regular people who live in Comrar and have to do the jobs to keep everything running. Like Comrar still needs someone to like fix the plumbing. There are still plumbers in Comrar.
Even in Comrar, someone's got to scrub the toilets.
Yeah, and so they established a place where people could watch other things suffer. And they are the witch arenas, and the witch arenas are where you watch people fight to the death. And oftentimes you'll be watching like different warriors fighting each other from amongst different like cults and things like that. And so the suffering of the bloodshed, the suffering, the emotions that come from that fight make them feel nice and invigorated. But when they'll oftentimes bring in like other slaves or a captured space marine or something, and the general public can feed off that, and it can keep them relatively healthy, just enough to keep them going. And sometimes people willingly allow themselves to end up in the arena. We talked about Ephrael Stern spending some time in the Witch Hunter arenas. Ephrael Stern was actually dressed as a witch, in the full combat gear and stuff during it. So that's something to consider. Witches are pretty decent, if not a little touch and go in close combat, and they can get some bonuses to them that makes them even faster, even more dangerous, and melee attacks that poison the enemy and slow them down, things like that. I think we're almost through it. They also get the Dark Eldar to get a flying unit. It's called the Raven. It just looks like a larger jet bike.
Most aircraft in this game, that it again is more a matter of not losing than trying to win. Just trying to irritate the crap out of your opponent.
Yeah. At least, at the very least, one of the nice things about the Raven is it actually has anti-tank weaponry on it. It has Dark Lancers, which are essentially what you would call Dark Eldar las cannons. They're actually quite good, and so they can be quite handy in tank hunting. If you want to move your raiders somewhere and you want to give them cover, so they're not entirely useless. Like say the fighter vehicle for the sisters is it's actually got some use and utility and keeps up with the general speed of the Dark Eldar faction. So at the very least, it's the least sore thummy of all of the flying units in the game.
It's still not very good. This is a little bit like talking about how cerebral a children's cartoon is and how there's so many adult jokes in it. All of that can be entirely true, but we've done enough Transformers stuff to be able to say, yes, okay, there's a lot of cool stuff going on in this series versus that series.
Bolt is going on.
But at the end of the day, Hasbro made all Transformers shit to sell toys. All right, it's fine.
I should probably mention as well, the Homunculus can detect infiltrated units and has a lot of other kind of things as well. Witch squads also actually have detection as well. But the Homunculus is a sort of you might call them a support caster, so to speak. They can deploy a little building turret thing that anybody nearby, they find themselves slowed down. Their movement speed gets reduced by almost half, and their reload time is actually significant. That's the Soulstorm, by the way. I put it down where no one was because I'm an idiot.
I mean, they were there and then they moved.
And I forgot you could move it, so I didn't make it follow. Then you've got the Stinger, is another ability they've got, where they hit an enemy with the poison damage that deals 15 damage every 0.3 seconds, according to this, for 10 seconds. So it does quite a bit of damage. And if that target that's been poisoned dies at any point during that 10 seconds, they explode and send everybody else nearby flying, and it does look does disruption. And then the final ability that they can get allows them to just make the souls that are in a particular area explode. So if there's a really big battle and the enemy have a few dead people, you can start to multiply that by using the dead bodies as corpse explosion fodder.
I was gonna say, like, I too appreciated playing the necromancer in Diablo 2.
I don't hate any of the abilities that like the Dark Eldar have got. They're all very like again. I think Iron Law spent the most time working on the factions than they did working on the campaign and other things. Like I really think they poured a lot into these guys, and I really like whether or not you like the mechanics for them or not. I feel like they really have like. Considering the somewhat static nature of like Dawn of War goes a bit against how the Dark Eldar would primarily function, I feel like they've still done a pretty impressive job in that regard.
They like Iron Lore absolutely did an amazing job of making each faction feel unique and doing things in such a way that that you could get a real feeling for how those races were in the lore, which actually I think was really quite important because even though at this point like Dawn of War had spawned a number of other Warhammer 40K games, and it started its own like cottage revival of the fandom on PC. And everybody was really keenly aware that people were still coming back to Dawn of War, and this was their first experience with Warhammer 40K. Yeah. Like this was the first time you were ever going to meet any Dark Eldar. This is the first time you were ever going to meet any Space Marines. So like you had to stick to the straight and narrow to a certain extent. That still doesn't excuse the fact that the mechanics in question are not fun to play, and they're not fun to fight.
So I was about to make, and then thought better of it, the Ravager. The Ravager kind of looks like a Raider, but it's a bit more armored, and it's basically covered in like anti-tank weaponry, and can be upgraded to have like anti-infantry weapon on it. It's kind of funny. A lot of like Dark Eldar stuff is like they've got anti-tank stuff. But then they're like, you could upgrade them to like the anti-infantry. I think, am I gonna build a Warp Beast pack? I really should. Warp Beast packs are kind of like
build one
the
earlier.
next. It's kind of oh yeah, there they are. The Warp Beast packs are kind of funny because like in a lot of games you would expect that you would build them first and then the Witch Squad because it's like it's the squad full of the witches. They're obviously the better combatants, but no, it's the Warp Beasts are they are essentially very fast-moving packs of like angry dogs that will bite the absolute hell out of things, and and they if they get demoralized, they will just start like attacking it's like itself and anyone nearby, which can include allied units, and can't be given orders and stuff like that. So they're very strong, but if you don't have a Beastmaster on hand to use their Tame Warp Beast's ability, which basically stops them from doing that, then you're gonna have some problems. So they're a double-edged sword, but they are still extremely effective, extremely effective in combat. And I think that's it for all of the units. I apologize that it's not really that in-depth or well-covering of things. Mostly just because, again, like, even from playing these myself, I still kind of felt like I wasn't grasping it too well. And here is the Dice of Destruction, our relic unit. Remember when I said the Black Hand, whatever they call themselves, they're run by a guy named Azdrabale Vecht?
Yeah.
We've got the leader of the entirety of the faction as like a playable unit in the game.
Why not?
And yes, he does have scantily clad human women on his boat. That is true to his model on the tabletop. I don't know if it's like still like they use the same model or what, but like one of the it's very on the nose. But they really wanted to let you know this guy wants to be Jabba the Hutt. And it has like the Talos has the like similar to the Immolated, the ability to make things flip around and like shoot everyone around him. And one of the interesting things about the Dice of Destruction, aside from the fact that it's got an energy field that reduces the damage to like range I think just general damage to all. Oh no, it's just range damage to like all of your Dark Eldar units, making it so you can actually like, stand up better in a firefight. But it's just got ridiculous amounts of like of firepower for taking things out, and it has this kind of weird ability called Dark Scythe, and it just kind of does a big sort of Dark Lance beam swipe in like a sort of half circle in front of itself. It kind of looks weird, and I will do it to show it off, but like this isn't. I don't feel like this video is not very good showing off what the Dark Eldar can do, because I've mostly just been trying to build up the units so I can learn how to use them all over again, and and in this time, like the Chaos Forces have taken up like more than 50% of the map, but they're only building heavy bolters and defilers, so it's not too bad. But now that I've got like all of my force together, it's going to be very difficult for them to cause any problems, because like I said, I've got the Talos, and the Talos will outfight a defiler any day of the week.
And also all of those chumps behind trying to kill it with heavy bolters. Holy mother!
Yeah, the Talos is a strong lad. It also is just kind of wild and wacky. Look at it go.
It turns into one of those wild, wacky, inflatable arm flailing tube man thing memes from freaking Family Guy. There you go.
There it is. That was the big B mark thing. Like the animation looks a little fucking wacky, but that was it. Well, we'll see more of it, because as Drabail Vect is hanging out and having fun. The Stronghold for the Dark Eldar is hilariously funny, because it's like, yeah, Tyrell is the faction leader for Soulstorm, but Vect is there just yelling at him. So it's just like, you're trying to do your best, but your boss is just like leaning over your shoulder, micromanaging you. And it does end quite hilariously with like Vect's shit like getting exploded, and Tyrell just going, "I'm out of here," and just like running back into the gate. It's like, you are so fucking dead when Vect gets back.
Oh,
like,
dude.
You are so fucking dead when Vect gets back.
There's no way. By the way, leaning over his shoulder, the shoulders of his subordinates, micromanaging them, is also like a rather great masterstroke, because that is definitely what Vect is portrayed as doing a lot of times. He has that weird nobles ennui, where he doesn't want to do anything himself, but he also wants to be better than everybody around him. So
Vect's thing is like really complicated, and it's definitely going to take
yeah.
Probably, I reckon we can probably fit Vect chat in now, because there will be a, like I'm not so sure.
It's going to be a tight fit, I'll tell you that.
Vect, from what I saw, at the very least I'll talk about this, is Vect from what I remember of the original incarnation. They were a lot more light on his origins and things like that. And there was a sort of like originally almost a suggestion that Komara was like always his. That like Komara has always been his. But, and here's another feature of the Raven which is actually kind of cool. They can disable turrets.
Oh, I completely forgot about that.
Again, like I said, the Raven is like the least shit of all the flying units in the game. It can literally turn off turrets. It's really good, and it also does like decent damage against them too, if you can like get the fucker to like turn and shoot it. So yeah, but it's not bad unit. But yeah, Vect is in the more like sort of the revision they did in incarnations beyond that. Was strongly suggested to have originally just been a mere slave in Komara during like some of its cycle in the wake of the fall of the Eldar, who swore he would take over, and how he did that is gonna definitely take like a very long time to do. So that'll definitely be Stronghold Vect chat, because it is kind of funny. But he essentially destabilized the entire concept of the nobility in Komara and established the entire function of the Cabals instead. And what that meant is that while originally, Komara was a place where the rich just got richer, the entire concept of Komara now is a place where the strong. But the problem for anyone who wants to be strong is you have to be very careful how strong you get, because Vect wants you to be strong. He encourages you all to engage in the whole the whole shenanigans of everybody trying to get on top. But don't get up there too high, because he's up there waiting, and he quite enjoys he quite enjoys a challenge. And some people even suggest that he allows certain enemies to flourish, and may even, very subtly give them aid, so that he might have a challenge to his rule down the line. He hasn't really needed to do that more recently, though, because of two problems that were created. One he created for himself, and one that sort of came out of nowhere. And the one that came out of nowhere was, of course, the Iliad, as the entire concept of suddenly there being this new cool god on the block that can save everyone's souls kind of fucks with everything about Komara, because Komara is all about, the grind. It's all about working. It's all about working to keep your soul from getting nibbled on. And so, as a result, when someone goes, we might not need to do this anymore. We can just actually get real hobbies.
You shut up.
And Vec's just like, and he wasn't in on it. So naturally, he's been trying to kill as many people as possible involved in it, and he's had some success and some failure, and yeah, so that's one of the problems he has to deal with. The other problem that he's had to deal with is that there's this door in Komara called the Gate of Cain. I say door, it's a massive webway portal that unfortunately has been overwhelmed by demonic forces, and one of these things that's been happening in the change to the setting is that as things were going on, the door is starting to get quite hot. And it sounds like someone was punching on the other side of the door. And this has finally come to a head accidentally, because he and his actual rival that he accidentally sort of made for himself.
Accidentally. It was mostly on purpose.
Well, it's sort of kind of gotten out of hand for himself.
Yeah, that's the accident part. It's the quintessential example of Vect wants this guy to be strong because he's bored and wants a fun challenge, but it's the part where it's the situation where it's like, whoa, I didn't expect him to get that powerful. I didn't expect this to turn out that well.
Yeah, you see, it's kind of funny in that both himself and his rival, who I'm trying to bring the name up, essentially this rival was a woman who managed to do something actually quite surprising. He was all like, hey, I want you guys. He issued a challenge and said, I really want you guys to fuck up the humans. I want you to make the Empire eat shit. And she went out and she found where an STC that was producing the greatest medical miracle that the Imperium would ever see, that would have actually wiped out a lot of problems for them. And she just took it and she gave it to him, and he was like, holy shit, that was really good. And so he put her into his inner circle, and then, as Vect is prone to do, was like, oh, I'm bored of her now, you can get out of here, fuck off. And she was just like, how the fuck dare you, asshole? And so she went off to do her own thing, and I'm still trying to find where the fuck is her name. There's so many, there's a lot of history to this guy and his nonsense. Where is it? But he,
I don't know it either. I don't know it either for what it's worth.
Yeah. I'm sure I'll find it eventually. But the thing about it was that she went off and she kind of got in contact with the Laughing God. The general implication is that the Laughing God has made her an ally. She's not too sure of that herself. She merely encountered a strange entity in the webway that challenged her to a series of riddles, and when she won it, he was like, here you go, and just left a golden heart on a pedestal for her, and she was like, sweet, God heart, ripped her own heart out and stuffed it inside. And it's actually made her a lot stronger and a lot more dangerous. So, she and Vect have been sort of having this sort of dueling thing going, but they both thought that the other was going to actually try and open the Gate of Cain, and inadvertently, in the attempts to like undermine one another, accidentally left the Gate of Cain a little bit underprotected, resulting in it collapsing. It is
honestly, even the Gate of Cain's decay is also like a non-trivial amount of Vect's fault because, you know, yeah, okay, it got corrupted by demonic energies and so forth. Instead of doing anything to, you know, freeze that problem, for a long while, Vect was encouraging it because it made it easier to get some of the demons for raiding parties and so forth. Like you can get the devil dogs out through like the residual energies of the warp that were bleeding through. So like even that is also just kind of his own fault.
Yeah, so unfortunately, like, people in the comments will probably be able to instantly name this character, and I do feel bad that I brought her up without actually knowing, but I wasn't expecting to actually do lore chat. We actually managed to get ahead of, like, the nonsense that was going on. And yeah, so these are all the fun war gear you can get. Yeah, you can just get, like, a fucking like, a person, you know, a mask made of human or whatever skin, a trophy rack. The Dark Eldar do quite like messing with things. Haywire bombs are pretty good. And also upgrades to your incubi. We'll have a little bit of lore chat about them as well because they actually have strong ties to the Phoenix warriors.
Yeah, yeah. The incubi are an interesting topic unto themselves.
I get to choose two, and it's like, God, what horrible thing do I want to strap onto Tyrell?
Boy, that hell mask is like next level. Ridiculous.
Yeah. So yeah, that's our first taste of the Dark Eldar and all their mechanics. So next time we're going to go over to fight the Chaos Stronghold, and I mostly am doing that because A, it's the closest, and B, Karen, so even someone said this in the thread, the Something Awful thread. Like, a lot of people talk about Boreal, they talk about, you know, Space Marines and Steel Rain and all that sort of nonsense. Advanced Stubbs misplacing 100 Baneblades, which is everyone immediately started talking about that, to me when I posted it. And then, but the third thing a lot of people don't note is that Charon is, aside from being the source of metal boxes, he has probably one of the most deranged Stronghold intros I've ever fucking heard in the game. It is like this guy's an Alpha Legion leader, huh? Alright, okay, I guess this is one of the guys that was trained by Alpharius as a joke. Because I don't really understand how anyone could think this guy was like anything but like a prank.
I mean, I have my own particular thought on that prank, but I'll save it for then because it's a pretty great prank, honestly. Like, you have to see it to believe it.
Yeah, so that's for next time. We're going to be rather unfortunately interacting with Chaos in all of their meme glory. So until then, I've been the Last Robokai,
and I have been Cool Guy,
and we'll see you next time as we face down the Alpha Legion, or at least someone who is pretending to be the Alpha Legion, which might as well just be the Alpha Legion. I could be here all night working on that one. So
Alpha Legion.